Okay, shall I start the class? Raise your hands if I can start the class. Okay, right, very good, right. So in the previous session, we discussed, we started a discussion about circulatory shock. We defined circulatory shock as a condition which is characterized by decreased tissue perfusion due to an absolute or relative decrease in the cardiac output. We classified shock based on the cause. Okay. So based on the cause, we classified shock into four groups. Hypovolemic shock, where the blood volume is decreased due to hemorrhage, surgery, trauma, burns, or excessive vomiting and diarrhea. Then we also, next one is distributive shock, where the vessel diameter is increased, there is vasodilatation or there is increased capillary permeability. There we have the neurogenic shock, fainting attacks, or anaphylaxis, or severe sepsis, where there is an increase in the capillary permeability. Then we have cardiogenic shock, where the pumping activity of the heart is abnormal, is decreased due to myocardial infarction, congestive cardiac failure, or arrhythmias, severe arrhythmias. And last, we have obstructive shock, where there is a major obstruction to the flow of blood, which can happen in tension pneumothorax, cardiac tamponade, both are medical emergencies, and tumors in the heart like atrial myxoma. If at all this question is asked on shock, the most common one will be hypovolemic shock. Okay, so they will ask you define shock, describe the signs and symptoms of hypovolemic shock, and what is the physiological basis for the signs and symptoms in physiological shock? What are the compensatory mechanisms which are there in the body when a patient is having this hypovolemic shock? Physiological basis or the compensatory mechanisms, and how will you treat a patient who is having hypovolemic? This is the most common one. Others are also there nowadays, but of all the types of shock, hypovolemic shock is the most common. Okay, so I already did this on this slide on this group. So you can write. Somebody can help me here. You can write. Somebody help me here. You can write hypovolemic shock. Please, somebody help me here. Yeah, thank you. So hypovolemic shock you can write, and you can write in bracket. It's hypovolemic shock is also called as cold shock. Cold shock. It's also called. One person is enough. I don't want so many people. It's also called as cold shock. So you can put a line and you can go on writing the signs and symptoms which is there in a patient with hypovolemic shock. So what are the signs and symptoms in a patient with hypovolemic shock? There is hypotension, means blood pressure has decreased. The pulse becomes very fast and very faint pulse, thready pulse under. Okay, so rapid thready pulse. If you touch the skin, you can write here hypotension. Okay, there is hypotension, decreased blood pressure, hypotension, then pulse, a rapid thready pulse. Rapid thready pulse means pulse rate is very fast and it's very not felt very well. Pulse is not felt very well. Okay, and if you touch the skin in a patient with hypovolemic shock, the skin appears pale as if all the blood has been removed, and it is cold and clammy. Okay, so pale, cold, clammy skin. That is why this hypovolemic shock is also called as cold shock. And there is CLA-MMY. Yeah, good. And there is intense thirst. A patient who is having a hypovolemic shock is having, he'll complain of severe thirst. Respiratory rate increases. Rapid respiration is there. So there is a tachypnea. Okay, so rapid respiration is there. Patient is very restless. The patient who is suffering from, yeah, you forgot rapid respiration. rapid respiration. Okay, and restlessness. He keeps moving, even on the bed. He keeps moving from side to side, very restless. He's moving his arms and legs, and there's a lot of restlessness. Or there is torpor, T-O-R-P-O-R, complete inactivity. Okay, so either there is restlessness, or alternatively, some patients may show torpor, T-O-R-P-O-R. Torpor means, what is the meaning of torpor? Inactivity. Torpor means inactive. Okay? So these are the signs and symptoms in a patient who is suffering from hypovolemic shock. There is hypotension, rapid steady pulse, pale, cold, clammy skin, intense thirst, rapid respiration, restlessness or torpor. And because of the pale, cold, clammy skin, this type of shock is also called as cold shock. But you should remember one thing. All these symptoms are not present in all patients. Okay, so it is relative. Some symptoms are there, some are not there. Say, for example, I'll take the first one, hypertension. So, if the patient's blood pressure before he had this hypovolemia was he is hypertensive, it was around 180 by 100, and after he had the bleed, it is 120 by 90. So you will think 120 by 90 is normal. But if you compare it with the previous blood pressure which he had, it is hypotension. It is a fall in blood pressure. Okay. So each and every signs and symptoms, it's not a must that they all will be present in all the patients. Okay. It is relative. It depends on the patient's response. Each person is going to be responding differently. That is the beauty of the human body, is it not? We are dealing with biological systems here. 2 plus 2 cannot be 4 always. The biological systems in different people are going to respond in a different way. Okay, but anyhow, these are the signs and symptoms. Okay, now it's very interesting to look at the compensatory mechanisms that are activated by hemorrhage. So the most common cause for hypovolemic shock is hemorrhage. Right? What is hemorrhage? What is hemorrhage? Blood loss. Blood loss. So you can classify this hemorrhage based on the volume of blood lost. Okay, so we calculate it based on how much ml of blood per kg body weight. So if it is less than, it is around 2 to 5 ml per kg body weight, we call it as mild blood loss. Moderate blood loss is anywhere from 5 to 15 ml of blood per kg body weight. I hope you're writing down this. And the severe blood loss will be anywhere from 20 to 25 ml per kg body weight. Okay, so we usually go in the middle part. We are talking about moderate hemorrhage. A patient who was normal suddenly had moderate hemorrhage due to whatever reason. Moderate hemorrhage ante bleeding ante it is around 5 to 15 ml per kg. 5 to 15, 1 5. Okay, so 5 to 15 ml per kg body. Right? So in this patient who's had this thing, a moderate hemorrhage due to whatever cause, moderate blood loss, many changes will happen. Blood flow is going to decrease to all the tissues. That is the most common thing is happening in all shock. There is no oxygen supply to the tissues. Tissues will go in for anaerobic metabolism. So when they go in for anaerobic metabolism, what starts accumulating in the body? When tissues go in for anaerobic,
lactic acid.
very good. So lactic acidosis can happen. Okay, so the lactic acidosis, normal value of lactic acid is around 1 ml, 1 millimole per liter. It can go up to 9 millimole per liter. I hope you are noting down those values. Okay, so there can be lactic acidosis. Then we have some rapid compensatory mechanisms which are activated by hemorrhage. Before you take down what is shown in the slide, first thing you have to understand is there is a activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic discharge increases. Who will tell me why?
Blood pressure is increasing and baroreceptor reflex is not activated.
Excellent, excellent. I think Yogita told it also. And most of you are telling it. Okay. So what happens is when the blood volume decreases, the blood pressure decreases, there is hypertension, and there is decreased stretch of the baroreceptors. So if there is a decreased stretch of baroreceptors, you have decreased number of inhibitory impulses going to the vasomotor center. So there is less inhibition of the vasomotor center. So when there is less inhibition of the vasomotor center, sympathetic discharge is going to increase. Okay, so there is an increase in sympathetic discharge. So there is an activation of the nervous system. Also, we see that this hemorrhage is going to cause the release of hormones from mainly the adrenal medulla and some other endocrine glands. Okay, so some hormones are released and there is an activation of the nervous system. You combine both. Neurohumoral response to hemorrhage. This is a nice way of remembering what happens in this hypovolemia. Okay, in hemorrhage. What is that? What is the word? What is the word I used? What are the two things I combined? Neurohumoral response. Yeah, write on that. Neurohumoral response means neural means it is activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Humoral means there is a release of some hormones. And why the sympathetic nervous system is being activated? It is because of, like you all told, many of you told, the baroreceptors, there is less stretch. When there is less stretch in the baroreceptors, sympathetic discharge increases. When there is more stretch, sympathetic discharge decreases. We discussed that so many times when we spoke about the blood pressure, is it not? So there is neurohumoral response. So what happens when the sympathetic discharge increases? Now you take down the compensatory changes, which is there is vasoconstriction. Okay, so here also there are some exceptions. There is vasoconstriction everywhere except
brain and heart.
Very good. There is vasoconstriction everywhere except in the brain and heart. So what is the next question I'm going to ask you? Why when there is sympathetic discharge, the brain and heart are spared from the vasoconstriction?
If the blood
sympathetic nervous system దేవుడు చెప్తాడు ఇది వైటల్ ఆర్గన్స్ అక్కడ వాసోకన్స్ట్రిక్షన్ చేయదు. There should be some explanation. Sympathetic cerebral blood vessels, there is no innervation by the sympathetic nervous system. So there is no sympathetic innervation in the cerebral blood vessels. Why in the heart there is vasodilatation? There is no vasoconstriction in the heart. Whoever tells me, ఇంకేం చేయాలండి? చాక్లెట్ ఇస్తా వచ్చిన తర్వాత పెద్దదే ఇస్తానులేండి.
Blood flow to coronary circulation will decrease and the contractility of the heart.
Yeah, who's this? Yeah, okay, Bhargavi, you will get a chocolate once you come back. 20 rupees one, 5-star, or a bigger one maybe. Good. So if you have followed the discussion on coronary circulation, you will see they would have told you that there is increased sympathetic discharge. There is vasoconstriction everywhere except in the coronary circulation and in the skeletal muscle. In the skeletal muscle, you have sympathetic vasodilator system. But in the coronary circulation, what is happening is when the heart rate increases, when there is an increase in sympathetic discharge, heart rate increases. When the heart rate increases, means the heart is working more, beating more number of times, more metabolic waste products are going to be released. And that is going to cause vasodilatation. Okay, so two organs are spared. All organs you will see vasoconstriction except in the brain and heart. So you should write the explanation why there is no vasoconstriction in the cerebral circulation and why there is no vasoconstriction in the heart. Okay, and then can anybody take this further and tell me why there is a cold, pale, clammy skin?
blood vasoconstriction circulation.
Cutaneous vasoconstriction. There is intense vasoconstriction in the skin, blood supply, blood vessels in the skin. There is an intense vasoconstriction. We don't want the blood to be flowing to the skin. All the blood is being diverted from all the organs. It sees that blood flows to the brain and heart. Okay. Whereas in exercise, what was happening? Blood was being diverted mainly to the heart. Brain, there was no change. Skeletal muscle, it was increased, and skin, it was increased. Here it is opposite. Skin, there is vasoconstriction. So when there is no blood flowing to the skin, that is why it appears pale, cold, and clammy skin. You see. You understood now why we have that pale, cold, clammy skin? Okay. Then there is tachycardia. What is the cause for the tachycardia? Again, it
Increase
is
in sympathetic.
again, very good. Again, it is increase in the sympathetic discharge. Again, it is an increase in the sympathetic discharge. Okay. Then there is venoconstriction. The venoconstriction is again same thing. It is because of an increase in the sympathetic discharge. And like we all know, we have been discussing this so many times. Whenever there is venoconstriction, the size of the capacitance vessels and veins, they have a great capacity to store blood. So the size of the capacitance vessels is going to decrease, and the blood is going to be translocated more back towards the heart. That helps in increasing the cardiac output. There is tachypnea. What is tachypnea? Increase in the respiratory rate. What is the normal respiratory rate?
12 to 18 cycles.
12 to 18 breaths per minute is called as is the normal respiratory rate. And what word you will use for the normal respiratory rate?
Eupnea.
Yeah, we will use the word eupnea. Okay, here it is tachypnea. So what is the reason for the tachypnea? Who will tell me?
Increased thoracic pump activity.
No. Tachypnea will cause increased thoracic pumping. What is the reason for tachypnea? Why is the respiratory rate increasing? Why is the heart rate and the tachycardia and vasoconstriction and venoconstriction there? Baroreceptors, there is less stretch. Okay. So what regulates respiration? Huh? Yeah, chemoreceptors. There is decreased blood flow to the peripheral chemoreceptors. The PO2 falls, PCO2 increases, H plus ions are accumulating around the peripheral chemoreceptors. Can you name the peripheral chemoreceptors?
Carotid and aortic body.
The carotid body and the aortic body. Yeah. So there is decreased blood flow to the carotid body and aortic body. There is accumulation of hydrogen ions and lactic acid there. Decreased PO2, increased PCO2. Very first chapter. Decreased PO2, increased PO2, increased H plus ions because of lactic acidosis will stimulate the peripheral chemoreceptors, and that will cause increase in the respiratory rate. In fact, some people say that when the blood pressure falls below 70 millimeters of mercury, the increased sympathetic discharge is because of the peripheral chemoreceptors stimulating. Which mechanism is this? Where I have told you this? Yeah, rapid blood pressure, rapid mechanisms for regulating our blood pressure. First, I told you baroreceptor reflex. Baroreceptor reflex is operating between 60 to 180 millimeters of mercury. Okay, but when the blood pressure falls below 70, there is again increase in sympathetic discharge. It is not via baroreceptors; it is via the peripheral chemoreceptors. Okay. Anyway, if you're not understood that point, don't bother. Just remember, respiratory rate is increasing. What is the cause for the increase in the respiratory rate? The cause for the increase in the respiratory rate is the peripheral chemoreceptors are stimulated because of the decreased blood flow. There is a decreased PO2, increased PCO2, and they are stimulating the respiratory. There is restlessness. Person is moving about. He is not able to stay still on the bed. Person who is having hemorrhagic shock. He's just throwing, moving his arms and limbs a lot. And the reason for this is there is increased secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine from
Adrenal gland.
adrenal gland and a kodata.
Adrenal medulla.
Yeah, you have to be specific, is it not? There is increased secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine from the adrenal medulla. The norepinephrine will act on one system in the brain called as reticular activating system. It will go and stimulate. I hope you're taking down all this, okay? So the norepinephrine, which is released from the adrenal medulla, will go in the brain and stimulate the reticular activating system. So person, it's activating the whole brain. Person has become hyperactive, become very restless. Okay. Then what is the next thing we see? Increased movement of fluid from the interstitial fluid into the capillaries. దీనికి ఇంకేమైనా word use చేస్తారా?
Capillary fluid shift.
Yeah. This is nothing but the operation of the capillary fluid shift mechanism. The capillary fluid shift mechanism, I told you, it's a very simple mechanism, but it is a life-saving mechanism. The fluid shifts from the interstitial space into the capillaries. That will increase the blood volume, that will increase the venous return, that will increase the cardiac output, that will increase the blood pressure, that will increase the tissue perfusion. Okay. Then from this point onwards, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From the 7th point onwards, up to the last but one. What is that? Up to this point, it was neural mechanisms. From here onwards, it is all the humoral response. I told you, the compensatory mechanisms to hypovolemic shock, we mainly call it as neurohumoral response. Okay, so the neural one part you saw. From here onwards, it is all the humoral response. So there is increased secretion of norepinephrine and epinephrine. There is increased secretion of norepinephrine and epinephrine, mainly triggered by the increased sympathetic discharge. Apart from causing restlessness, it also increases the sympathetic effect. Okay, it increases the effect of the sympathetic nervous system. There is increased secretion of vasopressin. Ento.
Antidiuretic.
Why you are all so dull today? Saturday. What is the other name for vasopressin?
Antidiuretic hormone.
Antidiuretic hormone. ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుందో?
Posterior
Pituitary.
It is synthesized in the posterior pituitary. Avuna?
No, sir.
Yeah, it is secreted from the posterior pituitary. It is stored and secreted in the posterior pituitary. But ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? ఎక్కడ తయారైతుంది?
Hypothalamus.
So this vasopressin is having two actions. It causes vasoconstriction. It also causes increased reabsorption of water from the kidneys. Again, that will help in restoring the blood volume. So you can write that vasopressin from the posterior pituitary. It will cause increased reabsorption of water from the kidneys, which will increase the blood volume. And again, everything is trying to improve there. It will also cause vasoconstriction. There is increased secretion of glucocorticoids. Which gland, which layer?
Cortex. Adrenal cortex.
Be specific in your answer.
Zona glomerulosa.
Oi. Zona glomerulosa secretes mineralocorticoids, kada. So this is secreted from the second layer, zona fasciculata. That is secretes cortisol. Okay. So cortisol is a hormone which is secreted in stressful situations. It will help to cause vasoconstriction. It will help to cause more release of metabolites and so many important actions it is having. They will teach you We are starting endocrine system from next week. So there you will come to know about the importance of glucocorticoids. Okay. So mainly, if epinephrine and norepinephrine have to cause vasoconstriction, glucocorticoids must be there. It is called as permissive action. Okay. Then there is increased secretion of renin and aldosterone. Yes, system and
RAS.
మీరు ప్రొఫెసర్ మాదిరి రాస్ అంటే కొడతాను ఇంకా మీరు స్టూడెంట్స్
Renin,
Angiotensin.
and renin angiotensin aldosterone system is activated. That helps in reabsorption of sodium and water. Again, it is trying to restore the blood volume. And then there is increased secretion of erythropoietin. This is a little late. Erythropoietin will help in increasing the production of RBCs. Yeah, and there is increased plasma protein synthesis. Okay. This epinephrine and norepinephrine, they also help to increase the respiratory rate. Okay. Then we have long-term compensatory reactions that take place. Okay, this is immediate. Long-term compensatory reaction that takes place in a patient with shock. You have the production of RBCs. How many days it will take for the RBCs to start being produced?
7.
7 to 9.
Yeah, 7 days. Okay. So so today somebody's bone marrow starts producing RBCs. It will take 7 days. Okay, it will take some time for RBCs to be restored fully. It takes around 3 to 4 weeks. For the protein synthesis to take place also, it takes some time. So this will be the long-term compensatory reactions that are going to take place, right? So I have told you the neurohumoral response to hemorrhage. This neurohumoral activation is the reason for the various compensatory reactions. So they will ask you, they can ask this in different ways. What is the physiological basis for the signs and symptoms? Why there is, I told you, why there is hypotension, rapid 3D pulse, intense pale, cold, clammy skin, and all that. You should explain. Okay. And then the basis for this vasoconstriction, tachycardia, venoconstriction, tachypnea, restlessness. What is the advantage of the patient being restless? Muscles are contracting. Respiratory pump is going to be more activated. That will cause increase in the venous return. I told you in the signs and symptoms, some people are restless, but some people are having one thing. What is that? Torpor. What is the meaning of torpor?
Inactivity.
Why they are inactive? Why some people are inactive? Some people are inactive because there is accumulation of lactic acid in brain. Also, the lack of oxygen, if it is very severe, that can cause inactivity. Okay, the decreased blood flow, decreased oxygen, increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Instead of stimulating the vasomotor center, sometimes there is severe depression, especially the lactic acidosis. Okay, so that is the reason for the torpor which we see in some people. Then kidneys, because of the venoconstriction, the urine volume output decreases. The urea starts accumulating. There can be azotemia. Severe vasoconstriction in the kidneys. There can be drastic fall in the urine volume output. All the metabolic waste products which have to be secreted, they start accumulating in the body. Then what happens in traumatic shock? In traumatic shock, there is a combination of external and internal bleeding. Some amount of bleeding can happen outside, which is visible, but some bleeding can happen inside the body, which is not visible. Say, for example, there is a fracture of the femur. Somebody met with a road traffic accident, femur fracture. Okay, some slight bleeding may happen, But internal bleeding, almost 1 to 2 liters of blood can accumulate in his thigh, and the diameter of his thigh will change only 1 centimeter. So you should be very careful. The patient who is having trauma, polytrauma is very common nowadays because of the road traffic accident. And then you can have in this, again in trauma, there can be crush injury. Muscle is being crushed, tissues are being crushed. That will cause release of myoglobin from the muscles. And when the myoglobin is released, that can go and block the kidneys, and that can cause its own problems. Surgery. Patient with surgery, unless nowadays, unless the surgeon is a butcher, we will not see this surgical shock. But sometimes, depending on the patient's response, we may have the surgical shock where there is external bleeding, there is a little bit of internal bleeding, and there is tissue dehydration. So these three can cause surgical shock. Burns. Burns is a very important cause of hypovolemic shock, especially when it is this third degree burns. In spite of so much advances in medicine, the mortality rate is very high in third degree burns because fluid loss is there. Lot of fluid, the exudate continuously using is there from the burnt tissue, and then you have increased metabolic rate. For some reason, a patient with burns, his metabolic activity increases, which is not good in that patient. The risk of infection is very high. Our skin is like a barrier which is preventing all the microorganisms from entering into our body. So when the barrier is broken down, all the microorganisms can easily enter into our body. That is again a very dangerous thing that can happen. Okay, the infection is the main reason for the death. Okay, so burns, there is hemoconcentration. Only fluid is lost. The RBCs are not leaking out. Okay, so there is hemoconcentration in burns. Even in severe vomiting and diarrhea also, there can be hemoconcentration. Then we have some metabolic disorders, especially diabetic ketoacidosis. Diabetic ketoacidosis is this uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, where this happens usually in type 1 diabetes mellitus. Rarely we see in type 2 diabetes mellitus, where the person is not taking insulin injections. And the first choice of energy is carbohydrate. Any cell will use carbohydrate as energy. Then they will use fat. When the cells start using fat as an energy substrate, the problem when fat is used is fat is incompletely burned. So you have the formation of some bodies here. What bodies? Ketone bodies.
Ketone body.
Name those ketone bodies.
Acetone and
Yeah. Emma, అనుకులాడుతున్నారు.
hydroxybutyrate.
Yeah.
Acetoacetic.
Acetone, acetoacetic acid, and beta hydroxybutyric acid. Okay. So acetone, acetoacetic acid, and beta hydroxybutyric acid. These are the ketone bodies, and that is going to cause this diabetic ketoacidosis. Okay. Then please read up about the distributive shock. In distributive shock, you have this fainting episodes because of sudden discharge of the vagal parasympathetic discharge. You can have anaphylaxis, which is causing widespread vasodilatation. Giving norepinephrine injections is very, very useful in anaphylactic life-saving. Norepinephrine injections. Okay, so I think I have almost reached the end of this session. We will continue in the next class. Okay, treatment of shock. Common sense tells us that treatment of shock depends on the cause. In hemorrhagic shock, you have to give the blood. In the other types, you have to give whatever